Hello everyone. So this is again Rahul sir back with the last segment of this alkyl halides chapter, and today we are going to cover polyhalogen compound. That means all those compounds which have got like two or more halogen atoms, right? And along with that we'll be also focusing on your Grignard reagents. Though we have discussed its preparation earlier, maybe we have also used it, so we'll be doing that in little detail, and also we'll be focusing on diazonium, benzene diazonium chloride, right? So preparations we have discussed earlier. This time we are going to focus more on the mechanism part, how it is synthesized, right? So let's begin our class today. Okay, so when we talk about polyhalogen compounds, we have got like compounds with two or more halogen atoms, right? Two or more halides in the same molecule. Among them, your dihalogen derivatives are always very important to us. Now there are three types of dihalogen derivatives. One, if your halide atoms are on the adjacent carbon, so you have got these two carbons adjacent to each other with two chloride ions over here, right? So two chlorine atoms over here. So such a compound is called vicinal, right? So they are in each other's vicinity, and hence they are called vicinal dihalides, right? So dichloride this time. So it has to be adjacent to carbon. So that means either this and this would have done, or even these two also are eligible for vicinal nomenclature. Now if instead of two adjacent carbon atoms, if you take both the halogens on the same carbon, right, then it becomes your geminal dihalide. So geminal dihalide means halogen atoms on the same carbon. Doesn't matter whether it is a terminal one, right? Like right now it could have been the non-terminal one also. So this is propane, and if you put two like say I am going to put say two bromine atoms over here, then also this is what, this is geminal dibromide, right? Acha. And if these halogen atoms are separated from each other by more than one, they are not adjacent to each other, they are separated by at least one or more atoms, then we treat them as isolated dihalides, right? So geminal and vicinal dihalides have got definitely some special properties. They do play an important role in some type of special synthesis which isolated dihalides are unable to do so, right? Acha. And a very industrially very important dihalide is dichloromethane, majorly used as aerosols, right? However, one has to be very cautious while using this dichloromethane. Why? Because it is it causes like mild redness, right? Mild redness as well as intense burning when it comes in contact with the skin. So there are many compounds which are industrially very useful. Yeah, they are useful solvents, or they are like your used for solvation and all, right? However, we have to be always very cautious while using them, because they are not good for the skin contact or in some other manner, right? So they are hazardous if not used cautiously. So we are going to explore their properties, their preparations, their reactions. Let's go forward in this particular vicinal dihalide form. So basically what we have got 1,2-dichloroethane, 1,2-dichloroethane, which is its IUPAC name, right? So it is one of the simplest vicinal dihalide that we can have. So let us see how it can be formed first. So in this flowchart you can see, if you take like ethene, right, and through addition reaction you can have this vicinal stuff. You can have again ethane 1,2-diol. So you are treating this with PCl5. So nucleophilic substitution reaction will take place. Both OH will be replaced by Cl over here. And even if you are taking epoxide and you treat this with PCl5, then one by one these two bonds will be snapped and two chlorine atoms will be put over here. So these are some of the common methods of preparation of your vicinal dichloride here, right? Acha. Now what are the common reactions from them? So if you treat this with aqueous sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, so you will obtain this thing back. So your ClCl will be replaced by OH minus and we get it back. Now if you treat this with soda amide is a very strong base because it has got NH2 minus, which is quite strong, right? Then when you treat with this, then what is going to happen? First, elimination reaction will take place and you will get vinyl chloride, sorry, and then the other chlorine and other hydrogen atom is again removed and you get ethyne, right? So you get acetylene. So however, if you are using alcoholic KOH, be a little careful about that, because the first elimination reaction will take place, then the second elimination reaction, alcoholic KOH, despite rating, is not able to provide as efficiently as soda amide. So soda amide is kind of a one-stop solution. Both the elimination will take place consecutively, giving you first alkene, right, vinyl chloride, alkene, and then the alkyne part. But with KOH you will get the alkene part, but you will struggle with the alkyne part. So you have to be careful with the reagents a little. Now if you use zinc, both the chlorine atoms can be removed simultaneously in the form of zinc chloride. So you will be getting like ZnCl2 along with this as a byproduct, right? And you will get again your ethene with the help of this. Now if you react this with alcoholic KCN, so what is going to happen? On both the sides you are going to have CN, nitrile group of atoms, right? But now you have got like step up reaction. So from 2 carbon molecule, now it is a 4 carbon molecule, right? From 2 carbon to 4 carbon molecule. So if you do complete hydrolysis, then you are going to get succinic acid, right? So you will get this, and when you do heating, so OH and 1 H will be removed and you will get succinic anhydride in this case, right? So you are going to get this thing. So basically this compound is quite useful, because from with the help of this compound we can go to different class of compounds. So these are the type of reactions which help us in doing some sort of shortcuts in long conversions, right? So these are very important, please pay attention to them. So you can simply pause the video over here, rewind it a little, and again you can look into it accordingly, right? Okay, let's go to the next compound now. After vicinal dihalides, let us speak about geminal dihalides. So what do we have here in your geminal dihalide? So on the same carbon you have got both the chlorine atoms. That means this is what? This is 1,1 dichloroethane we are talking about. So one way of forming is see, you have got the vinyl chloride thing here. When you are adding HCl to it, so this is Markovnikov addition is going to take place. So the major product is going to be the one where you have got hydrogen on the carbon atom containing larger number of hydrogen atoms. So rich gets richer here, right? So basically you have got H coming over there and Cl going to this carbon, and hence you have got gem dihalide over here. Now if you take ethyne, then the same process will take place in 2 steps. That's why we have taken like 2 moles of HCl. So first you will form this, and from there you will come to this compound, right? And if you are taking acetaldehyde, then PCl5 is the best candidate, because it will break this bond, provide 2 chlorine atoms to this. So you will be getting gem dihalide, and along with that you will get POCl3, phosphorus oxychloride, right? So this is how the preparation of gem dihalide take place. It's again, it's quite an important compound, because from here you can obtain various other compounds, right? So let's see what are the other compounds that we can form from here. Now you are treating this with aqueous NaOH or aqueous KOH, so both the chlorine atoms will be substituted. Nucleophilic substitution reaction will take place, and you will get two OH atoms over here. Now remember that on same carbon 2 OH is highly unstable, right? So what is going to happen? This OH and one H will be removed, minus H2O, and you get acetaldehyde, right? Okay, now if you treat this with, again, like soda amide as we discussed earlier, then the same thing is going to happen. One chlorine, one hydrogen, and the mole, one chlorine and the hydrogen atom. So ultimately you will get your ethyne. So you can get it back with this method. So from ethyne you can get gem dihalide, and as and when needed you can get back ethyne by treating this with soda amide twice, right? Or 2 moles of soda amide will do the trick. Now if you treat this with zinc, then zinc is going to do your elimination. It will eliminate, or it will abstract both the chlorine atoms, but in the meantime it will also put another molecule along with the first one. So basically your the group, I mean the number of carbon atoms are going to double. So it is kind of a step up reaction. So what is happening here? You have got CH3, CH, 2Cl is here, zinc is here, 2 chlorine atoms are again placed. You have got CH, CH3. So basically what is going to happen is your zinc is going to zinc, in fact they will extract them, right? And in turn they will combine and thus give us, right? So we are going to, one is, this bond is not going to be there, right? So we are going to have but2ene with the help of this, right? Okay, so now, and in the last case again, if you treat this with the way we did it earlier, if you treat this with potassium with alcoholic potassium cyanide, then what is going to happen? Both the Cl will be removed, right? And then you hydrolyze it. So on the same carbon 2 carboxylic groups will be there, which is kind of unstable. So what is going to happen? If you heat it a little, one of the carboxylic group will eliminate carbon dioxide from it, and you obtain propanoic acid. So basically what is happening? You have got CH3, you have got CH, and then on the same carbon you have got 2 carboxylic groups. So when you heat, one of the carboxylic group will eliminate carbon dioxide, and this H will go back over there. So it is kind of step down reaction that is taking place due to heating. So this and carbon dioxide will be liberated. So this is how this geminine dihalide works, right? Okay, so next we are going to discuss about haloform reaction, a very important reaction. You are going to do this in quite detail. Its applications also in aldehydes and ketones, right? Why? Because haloform reaction is used for distinguishing methyl ketones or its reduced form. What is a methyl ketone? So you have got CH3, C double bond O here, right? So this is methyl ketone, and its reduced form is CH3, CHOH here. So haloform reaction is either given by a methyl ketone or its reduced form. Anything else is not going to give your haloform reaction. So this can have anything you want, right? Anything you want, but one side is fixed, right? Acha. Now remember, if you see the structure, if you put one hydrogen over here, it becomes acetaldehyde. So among aldehydes, only acetaldehyde can give this reaction, nothing else, right? Among aldehydes, only ethanol can give haloform reaction, right? One point to keep in mind. And similarly, if you see here, among alcohols, methanol will not give this reaction, but if you put H over here, so then it is ethanol. So among alcohols, ethanol also gives this haloform reaction, right? So what happens in this reaction? We have got a methyl ketone over here, right? This is your methyl ketone. This can be anything. So when you are treating this with halogen like Cl2, Br2, I2 in alkaline condition, what is happening? Then slowly, one by one, all these hydrogens are replaced by your halide ion, right? Once this halide ion enters the system, then slowly it helps in replacement of other hydrogens also, because of its electronegative effect, minus I effect. It activates these hydrogens, and they can be then easily removed and replaced by new halide ions, right? So these H will combine with them, forming 3HX over here, right? And further, since it is in alkaline condition, further the split of carbon-carbon bond will take place from this point, right? And then what you are going to get, this will become this OH will come over here, H will come over here. So basically you are going to have carboxylic acid and CH3 negative. So you know, proton transfer is going to take place. It will move here, means it will extract it. So you have got the carboxylate anion and the respective haloform molecule. So you can have chloroform, you can have bromoform, and you can have iodoform with this reaction only, right? Let's study this in little detail. So basically what is happening, for example, we are using iodine. So again, so when you are using say acetone over here, for example, you are asked to distinguish between say acetone and, let us take another molecule, say benzophenone. Now if you are asked to distinguish between acetone and benzophenone, so you know that ki acetone contains methyl ketone group, so it will give you iodoform test. However, benzophenone will not react, so hence you can distinguish between these two, right? So again, we are doing the same thing. You have got your iodine, you have got your alkaline condition with the help of sodium hydroxide, right? So what is going to happen is, first these these methyl H hydrogens will be removed one by one and replaced by iodine, and then bond splitting is going to take place, forming your iodoform, which will precipitate as a yellow compound, right? So a clearly distinguished yellow precipitate will be there, which confirms presence of a methyl ketone group and formation of iodoform, right? Then we have got 3 I minus, which is going to combine with sodium here, and the carboxylate part, that the other part which is carboxylate is going to combine with sodium, and of course water molecules are there. So this is what we discussed in the discussed in general for any X2, any of the halogen molecule. Now precisely we are discussing that for iodine. So this is how the whole reaction takes place. This is very important from your board perspective as well as from your NEET perspective. So be careful about it, right? Okay. Now, so this is basically what we talked about. If you have got the reduced form also, so the reduced form in presence of these oxidizing agents will simply get removed, and you will get back your methyl ketone. You will get back your methyl ketone from here, right? So doesn't matter whether you take the methyl ketone form or its reduced form. In any case, while using the halogen and base and your basic condition, they will be first oxidized to the respective methyl ketone, and further action is going to depend on that only, right? Okay, so this is how it happened as we discussed earlier. So one by one these hydrogens were replaced by iodine, which in further in basic condition it broke apart. This here you had OH initially and negative Ci3, and then this is going to extract hydrogen, and become yellow precipitate, the iodoform, while carboxylate anion will remain in the solvent as a dissolved compound, right? Okay, since it's a salt, it will remain as dissolved compound. It won't precipitate. Okay, the thing that you have to remember, which we just discussed, this form or the reduced form, right? Anything else can be attached over here. So ethanol, and as I discussed, acetaldehyde is the only aldehyde which can give this positive iodoform test. So it is something to be remembered while doing various word problems, right? Okay, let's try to quickly see what is going to give you iodoform test and which compound is not going to do that, because we are using it in distinguishing test. So you have got methanol, you have got ethanol, so it does not have got the reduced form, hence it won't give, it will give. Same goes for the next one. You have got one propane 1-ol and you have got propane 2-ol, so you have got the reduced form over here, right? Hence it will give and it won't give. Already you can see with the star sign also, it's clearly mentioned here. Same with methanol and ethanol, as we discussed. Only ethanol is the only aldehyde which can give this reaction. So this will give, this won't give, right? And in propanol and propanone, there is no methyl ketone present in the propanol side, while there is one over here, right? So this will give and this won't. So quickly we can do distinguishing test with the help of iodoform test among pair of organic compounds, right? So here you can see that again, this is the reduced form, this is the reduced form, which is not so in the first case, so it won't give, it will give. All these are close calls where you need to be very careful about the reduced form and also the oxidized form, otherwise mistakes can be made, right? Okay, so what do you have got now? You have got 2-phenyl ethanol, right, and acetophenone. So acetophenone has got this methyl ketone form, it does not, so it won't give. Benzophenone, we already talked about it, it should not give this test, so no for it, but your acetophenone can give this test, so yes for it, right? Acha, pentane, pentanone 3, it should be pentane 3-one, right? So this will again not give, right, but this will, because it has got the respective methyl ketone, so this will give and this is not give. This is one of the most common questions asked in boards also, to distinguish between pentane 3-one and pentane 2-one to their respective compounds with the help of iodoform test or haloform test, right? Okay, now let's talk about method of industrial preparation of your chloroform, right? How do we do that? So basically we are relying on two methods. One is the normal, your sunlight reaction of controlled halogenation, in this case chlorination. So first CH4 is going to form chloromethane, then dichloromethane, and then when the third hydrogen is replaced, it will form chloroform. So one method is that. The only problem is that this time you won't get the 100% chloroform thing, it will be staggered, it will be kind of mixed with other probable compounds also, like CCl4 is also going to form. So it will be small percentages of various compounds in this whole mixture, so which makes its yield quite less and difficult to isolate from the other halogen compounds, right? A better way for doing this is you use directly the haloform reaction, chloroform reaction in this case. So you are using your what, ethanol. So ethanol gets oxidized to ethanol, right? Chlorine in presence of water can act as a weak oxidizing agent, so ethanol gets oxidized to ethanol easily. So when this ethanol is treated with chlorine, it forms chloral. This compound is chloral, right? All the alpha hydrogens are removed one by one with these chlorine. So when you are doing chlorination of this and then you are treating it with calcium hydroxide, which can extract water from another molecule. So basically what is happening now, CCl3 is there. So see, 2 moles of this is there because you have got calcium with a valency of 2. So it will end, and what you are going to get, you are going to get hydrogen with CCl3. So chloroform is formed and your calcium formate is removed after hydrolysis. So basically when you are reacting chloral with calcium hydroxide along with chloroform, your calcium formate is also formed, which is removed from the system to obtain pure chloroform, right? So I hope this chloroform synthesis is totally clear to all of you. Now among its various chemical properties, this one is very important because chloroform, if exposed to aerial oxidation, can react with this in presence of light, because there is a photochemical reaction with this and form a very poisonous gas called phosgene, right? And HCl is of course formed. So basically what we do, we try to keep the use first a very dark bottle for keeping chloroform. Dark bottle means we can see what amount of chloroform is there inside. Lekin what happens, you are at least blocking the sunlight with the help of dark brown bottle, so tendency of reaction will become little less, right? However, we also take precaution that while storing it, we are filling it to the brim so that any extra oxygen is not trapped between the liquid and the lid, right? Because any extra oxygen is going to help it form your phosgene, right? Slowly, gradually phosgene will be formed. However, if you add 1% ethanol to the solution, to the empty part, what happens then? Your this, instead of converting into phosgene, which is a very poisonous gas, starts combining into diethyl carbonate. And the whole system is now made much safer than it could have caused any hazard in your laboratory. So this is a very important precaution which is asked quite a few times in your boards as well as in entrance, in NEET or JEE. So one has to keep this in mind. There's very important reaction. Okay, some other properties if we talk about, chloroform is used in the industrial production of the refrigerant R22. So it's a very good raw material to prepare R22, right? And this also gives us the insecticide chloropicrin. So basically what is happening here, H is extracted here, is being extracted by over here, which will further split as H2O, and NO2 is getting attached over here, right? NO2 is attached and this compound is your chloropicrin, right? Okay, then if you do dehalogenation in presence of silver for 2 molecules, what you get, silver picks up all the chlorines and you are left with ethyne. So it's a very good method to prepare acetylene or ethyne without losing out much on the precious compound. So basically what we are having here, 6 AgCl, which can be further again reacted to obtain back the silver here. So there are few methods of preparation of ethyne. These are the methods you might not have studied in detail in class 11th, but these can be used again for various conversions. So along with a couple of other methods of preparation of ethyne that we discussed earlier for gem dihalides and geminal dihalides and vicinal dihalides, this is also a very good reaction to prepare your ethyne. Okay, then since there are 3 replaceable chlorine atoms over here, so when you subject it to basic condition, then hydrolysis takes place and all the chlorines are removed and you obtain OH in place of them. But in a molecule more than one OH is not um, stable with one carbon atom. That's why they will rearrange one molecule of water is removed and we obtain this compound. So it is one molecule which is removed here, right, and we obtain the sodium salt from here. We obtain the sodium salt because it will be O negative, and with that Na plus is here, right. So this is another property of your chloroform. So now if we compare various haloforms in terms of their reactivity, iodine being the biggest one, it can easily break bond and go to react with some other compound. So basically you can see that iodoform is the most reactive one and chloroform is the least reactive one. And the better part is, whenever your iodoform comes in contact with various organic matter, iodine is produced, which acts like an antiseptic. That's why a lot of ointments do contain iodoform, and when applied to wounds they can heal them fast and give you relief quite easily, right. Okay, then also when since carbon iodine bond is quite weak, you can also heat this with AgNO3. You can see, you can heat it with silver nitrate, right, and yellow precipitate is formed. However, if you do so I mean with chloroform, then CCl bond is much stronger, so it is not broken easily by the AgNO3 solution and you do not get any positive test. In case of iodoform, obtaining this is very easy, but in case of your chloroform, this is not that easy. So therefore again remember these kind of things for your MCQs. Got it? Iodoform is doing, chloroform is not doing. So now what are the various reactions of CCl4? How do we prepare it and what are the various reactions? So before going into it, it's a water break. Okay. Now basically when you have got chloroform and you are reacting this with you are doing again chlorination in presence of sunlight, what is going to happen? First from CH4 you obtained CH3Cl, then you got CH2Cl2, and then we are CHCl3, and again you are doing the halogenation. Then this hydrogen will be also removed and another chlorine will be added over there, so you are going to get CCl4. Same thing you can do with carbon disulfide. Both these sulfur will be removed and 4 chlorine atoms will be added to it, right. So you get again the carbon your CCl4, right. And when you are using methane directly, it will at one stage it will definitely form chloroform, and from there you can come back to again CCl4. And the method is your cracking. So when you are heating at such high temperature with chlorine, the molecule cracks and these get converted into CCl4 individual carbon atoms. The bonds are snapped and they form individual CCl4. So these are the common methods of preparation of CCl4. And how can you use it further? So when you react this, you have with aqueous sodium hydroxide, you see initially OH 4 OH will be there. It cannot have it becomes unstable with the second OH. Now we have got 4 OH. So all these are slowly removed and this becomes carbonate. CO3 is formed, which further combines with sodium to form sodium carbonate. So this is one good method to prepare sodium carbonate, right. Now if you provide it with hydrofluoric acid, then it is a very good method to form the refrigerant called freon, right. So with the help of this, with antimony chloride and all, you can have freon made from CCl4. So it's an industrially very important reaction. Now if you do oxidation of this with little bit of steam, then this poisonous gas phosgene is obtained, right? So when you are reacting this with water, but not in the liquid form, but rather in the steam form, so you have got a lot of energy with you, so oxidation takes place and you obtain phosgene along with, of course, HCl, right? And if you try to reduce it, then what is going to happen? One chlorine will be removed, and one hydrogen will be put over here, so you can obtain back chloroform. So you can obtain CCl4 from chloroform, and when needed you can convert CCl4 carbon tetrachloride back into chloroform with via reduction with the help of iron and water, right? Iron as catalyst and water as solvent. So these are the various methods of preparation and further synthesis of carbon tetrachloride, right? Okay, now what are the various uses? Of course it is and properties, of course it is colorless, it's a transparent liquid. If you see, it's non-inflammable, that's why it is very good at high temperatures also. It can be used because it is not going to it is not going to produce flame and burn something else, so it is totally non-inflammable. However, it cannot be consumed, it's quite poisonous in nature. And why it is used as a solvent, as a good non-polar, it's a non-polar solvent, right? Because it is highly soluble in alcohol and ether. So whenever you want to have a non-polar solvent, then you can use CCl4 along with CS2, which is another good non-polar solvent, remember. So it can dissolve these oils, fats, resins, which makes it good for dry cleaning, because whatever stains of grease and other organic matter is there, CCl4 can easily absorb that, dissolve it back and make the surface clean, right? And since it is non-inflammable, so therefore it is also used as fire extinguisher with the commercial name of pyrene, right? So these are some interesting facts about CCl4, right? Okay, now what we have is when it is existing in solid form. So basically what you have got like CCl4. Now the next thing as a replacement of ethane you can have is C2Cl6. This in solid form is called perhalohydrocarbon, right? So this whole series of compound is called perhalohydrocarbon, and C2Cl6 in its solid form is perchloroethane, and this is what we use as camphor. This is what we use as camphor. So camphor is something which all of us have used in our house. Why? Because it's a very good moth repellent, right? So we put the mothballs in cupboards and various places, so that our clothes are safe, right? So now chemically it is nothing but C2Cl6. so this is again very good information and quite easy one, right? Just the way we are doing it, so nothing out of the way. Quite an interesting information which we should know. Okay, now comes DDT, a very important question, right? For both NEET, JEE Mains and board also. So what is DDT? So DDT is basically your dichloro-diphenyl, right? Dichloro-diphenyl tetrachloroethane, right? Dichloro-diphenyl tetrachloroethane, and though these dichlorophenyls, they are on the para position. So you can see that if you take like ethane molecule and remove 3 hydrogens to have 3 chlorine atoms over here, right? So that's why it is trichloro, and on the other carbon remove both the hydrogen atoms to put para dichlorophenyl over here. So what is the IUPAC name of DDT? It is Why it is bis? Because this is a your 4-chlorophenyl is a big group. So whenever there is a big group, we use the word bis in place of di, right? So what we have got is, if there is the first carbon and there is the second carbon, so 2 bis, 4 is the fourth position, there is the first position, 4-chlorophenyl, right? And then on the first carbon 3 chlorine atoms are there, so that's why we are using 111 trichloro, because if you do the other way around, then you are going to have higher addition of the substituents, so which is not good, right? So I'll pause it for a sec. I'll pause the video for a sec. Okay, so this was the first insecticide that was prepared, right, synthesized, um, which had chlorine in it. However, it's a big problem that, you know, this easily dissolves in fat and your grease and all, which means it is going to be if you use this insecticide, it is going to be very difficult for certain species of birds, because it may get dissolved in the egg shells in the eggshells, which means the stability of the, or the strength of the eggshell is going to be weaker, and it can crack at any point of time, right? So that is going to be quite difficult for it, right? So how is it formed? How is it prepared? So what do? We take 2 molecules of chlorobenzene, right? And you heat this with chloral. We already discussed preparation of chloral. So it is heated with chloral in acidic conditions. What happens? That this 1 molecule of water will be removed, and the resulting compound is your DDT, right? Okay, so its formation is quite important. Now this thing that we have to keep in mind, when you know, when DDT is kept for a long duration, slowly it loses this H, both the chlorine molecules are gone, this chlorine atom and H atom is gone from here, right? It is eliminated slowly, and therefore a double bond is going to be formed over here. Double bond will be formed over here. This makes the eggshells very weak, and slowly, since it is non-biodegradable, it stays in the atmosphere, in nature for a very long amount of time, long duration. So it is going to cause a lot of harm to the bird population, and it has happened, it has been recorded. So that's why use of DDT has been discontinued in many nations. Okay, so how we get freons? Freons are refrigerating agents. At one point of time, they were extensively used across the globe, but since it contributed a lot towards ozone hole formation, so slowly it is discontinued and replaced by some better compounds which do not attack ozone layer as such. So how is it formed? You have got carbon tetrachloride, you react this with hydrofluoric acid, so slowly fluorine will displace chlorine atoms, and you get CCl2F2, or in other words freon, right? Other method is you treat this with antimony fluoride, right? Antimony has got valency of +5 and +3 due to inert pair effect, so SbF3, and slowly it will fluorinate it, and you get freon 12, right? So that is how we get it. So this, as I discussed, this is a refrigerant, a propellant, and aerosols, right? However, it destructs ozone layer of the atmosphere, and hence not very popular anymore, right? Okay, let's do quickly some of the questions. So you have got pure chloroform is prepared by, How do we prepare pure chloroform? Heating ethanol with bleaching powder? No. So if you find, if you check, as we have discussed earlier, if you react chloral hydrate with aqueous sodium chloride, you can obtain pure chloroform. So let's check. Yes, so there's the right option. Again, you can pause the video, give the answer, and then again you can cross check what is the right answer, whether the answer that you gave is same as the one that we are discussing here. So what does this example says? The starting substance for the preparation of iodoform is any one of the following, except, so which one of them is not suitable for your iodoform test actually? So anything that does not have got the methyl ketone or its reduced form is not suitable. So if you see all four of them, there's only one carbon, so no way it can give the iodoform test. So this should be the answer. Let's see. Yep, there's the answer. Okay, now this is something about the uses of the said compounds that we discussed. So first one is acetyl salicylic acid. So oil of wintergreen, iodex and all these are the things. So basically it's a pain relieving medicine that is formed from this, so therefore it's a drug. So 1 should be related with B, right? We have to match it. Now DDT, as we discussed just now, this should be an insecticide, right? Naphthalene is, along with camphor, a very popular moth repellent, right? So we use naphthalene balls, you must have heard about it. So we are left with two options. CCl4, we already discussed, it is non-inflammable, hence it can be used with fire extinguisher. So basically what do we have? 1B is A or C, then 2A is with A only, so this should be the option, right? So there's the right option. Okay, now let's see. If chloroform is left open in air in the presence of sunlight, it gives. So when CCl4 interacts with sunlight in open air, it interacts with oxygen and it forms COCl2, phosgene, carbonyl chloride, right? You can see here, there's the reaction we talked about, COCl2, phosgene. So therefore carbonyl chloride is the right option, right? Okay. Now Freon 12 is commonly used as, we just talked about it, it is a refrigerant. However, it also accentuates ozone hole formation. So refrigerant is the right answer. Okay. Pesticide DDT slowly changes to, you had C double bond C over there. So therefore it should be an ethene molecule that we are referring to, right? So dichloroethene. So one chlorine is removed. So therefore this is the right option. This should be the right option, right? So this is the one that we have. Fine. So after those examples, we are now going to discuss in detail, little detail, your two versatile compounds formed from alkyl halides. They are industrially very good, I mean very important compounds, very significant compounds. In lab also they play a major role in various conversions. So the first one that we talk about is going to be Grignard reagent, followed by our diazonium salt, right? So let's see how Grignard reagent is synthesized first. So you can see here what we do, we have already discussed it earlier also. You take that means we discussed it in the section reaction of alkyl halides with active metals. One was the Woods reaction, other one was this Grignard reagent formation. So what you have got alkyl halide, you react this with magnesium, right, with diethyl ether as the solvent, and you obtain RMgX, right? So, and here you remember that this bond is highly polar. This bond is highly polar, right? And this is kind of ionic bond. This ionic bond. right? So what happens, what is the mechanism, how it is formed? So it's a free radical mechanism that takes place. So magnesium have got two valence electrons, so magnesium will definitely attack with one electron. So chlorine is also, or the halogen is also going to extract its electron, and this splitting will take place. So therefore you have got carbon free radical here, and magnesium monohalide is formed. So it has got one electron, but one electron is gone. So it, and this is a ionic bond, so Mg plus and X minus is going to stay together. In the next step, now first one is the slow step because bond breaking is taking place, and so therefore this is your rate determining step also. This is the RDS here, right? Achha, in the second step, what happens, this alkyl free radical is going to combine with this magnesium monohalide and form this. So this is highly polar. So this, what is the utility of this RMGX and RMG bond formation? This initially, this was electrophilic in nature. This was partially positive, partially negative. But the moment magnesium comes in between, your carbanion, means nucleophilicity of the carbon atom increases many folds, and this is very important because carbocation formation is still easier, but carbanion formation, that too in a stable condition, is quite difficult. So this increases nucleophilicity of the carbon atom. High, very high nucleophilicity is there. And why, have you wondered why are we using this ether as a solvent? Right now, diethyl ether especially has got this high tendency of solvating and stabilizing the cations. So here also something like this is taking place. So you have got RMGX. This is quite positive, right? So you have got the ether molecules here, and this OC bond is quite polar in nature, just like the RMG, but not to the extent of RMG. But still, since it is like this, this is partially negative, right? And it has got lone pairs also. So it electrostatically stabilizes it. Coordinate bonds are there. It electrostatically stabilizes it. So Grignard reagent is very, very stable when it is present with the solvent diethyl ether. Not because of this, also another reason is there, because this is aprotic. So this is non-acidic in nature, because in presence of water or alcohol, because of your accentuated nucleophilicity, it will simply react and it is going to form RH. This is aprotic in nature, right? This is how it takes place, right? Okay, now let us talk about some of the reactions of your Grignard reagent in detail quickly. So you can see that the first point that we are making here, when RMGX reacts with water or dilute acid, so what happens, it will donate H. R and H are going to combine, so you are going to have RH. So basically what is happening here, you have got RMGX, and along with that you have got the protonated hydronium ion, you have got basically protonated water hydronium ion, right? So what is happening, this is partially negative, so it will take it up and it will attack here. So therefore you are going to get this OH will be gone, right? Or if you remove this, simply this will become minus, so you can change it a little. I'll remove this and this. So if you take water only, so basically what is happening here, so you are going to get your RH, which is there, plus along with that magnesium hydroxide halide is also formed, right? So this is how we get it. That's why we avoid any moist condition. So we prefer to do reactions of RMGX in vacuum only, because moisture from air also can destroy RMGX like this because of its accentuated nucleophilicity. Now when you react with dry oxygen, similar thing takes place, right? So you have got your R, right, MgX is there. So with, right, what is going to happen? One of the bonds will shift like this and it will attack oxygen. So what you are going to have is R O, it's kind of a peroxide linkage, OMGX. So when you hydrolyze it, so what is going to happen? This bond will snap, you will get one H here, right? And since it is going to take the electron, right, so one H you give it over here, so you have got ROH, and again your ROH, sorry, not R, which is going to be M. So I'll remove this. So you have got Mg, OH and X formed over here. So you can see that every time it is a similar mechanism. It is the carbanion which is attacking, and Mg is the RMg bond is snapped, and you obtain the compound accordingly. So if you keep that in mind, formation of the new compound with the help of this will become quite easier, right? And this is one reaction which you will study in next chapter also, because a very efficient reaction for preparation of various types of alcohols. So when you are using RMGX along with formaldehyde, we obtain your primary alcohol. So what is happening here? Again, you have got this carbonyl compound, right? Formaldehyde is there, then you have got RMGX. So this will pull the electrons and R is going to attack over here. So what do you have? You have got CH2, you have got R here, and OMGX, which on hydrolysis will give you this thing, right? Similarly, this is for formaldehyde. Now if you take, in place of formaldehyde, if you take some other aldehyde, any other aldehyde other than formaldehyde, then already one R alkyl group is already there. So two alkyl groups will make it a secondary alcohol, right? So the same thing we can do here is R dash, and same again R MgX. So this moves here, this goes over here. So you can now see, and after hydrolysis, if I write it like this, so you are going to have R dash was already there, H is here, now this will become OH, and you are going to have R over here. TN. So this is how your secondary alcohol is obtained. And in similar fashion, if you take ketone, then this hydrogen is also not there, so another alkyl group is there. So three alkyl groups and OH, it automatically becomes tertiary, right? Same mechanism, but like this it will become tertiary alcohol. So remember that if you have got formaldehyde, you will obtain primary alcohol. It's very important for the next chapter also, preparation of alcohols. If you have got any other aldehyde, it will give you secondary alcohol. And if you have got ketone, then you are going to have tertiary alcohol, right? Acha. So when you and in place of aldehydes or ketones, if you remove that by HCN, right, HCN, same type of reaction, because carbon is associated with another electronegative element, same type of reaction is going to take place. So what is here? If you write it like this, RMGX here. So you can bring it over here. This R with its pair of electrons will attack here. So what you get? You get H, C, R has come over here, right? Double bond N and MgX, which on hydrolysis will give you this. So this bond will break, oxygen will come over here. So you have got aldehyde, RCHO, right? And ammonia will be released. And of course, MgOH will be also released. Right? Now, in place of HCN, if you take RCN, alkyl nitrile, if you take, then you obtain ketones. So H is not there anymore, R dash is there. So in place of H, R dash, so hence you will get ketones. Same mechanism, in the same method, this is going to happen, right? So if you take ketene, this is another molecule. This molecule is called ketene. If you take ketene and RMGX, so what is going to happen? This will again, see here, so this R is going to attack over here. This R is going to attack over here, and MgX is going to be attached over here, right? Same thing is there, right? And what is going to happen after this? Your acetone will be obtained accordingly. I mean, if you CH2 is there, so if you have got hydrogen on both the sides, so all these are your nucleophilic addition reactions. All these are your nucleophilic addition reactions. There's some sound, I'll just stop it for a moment. Right, so this is how ketene can be used for formation of methyl ketones. Actually, methyl ketones can be formed over here. Now epoxide can be also used in the similar fashion. What is going to happen is it will take up its electron and R will come and attack it. So you are going to have R, CH2, CH2 and OMGX, which on hydrolysis will give you this primary alcohol. So basically this is again a step up reaction where you can add 2 carbon atoms at one go. So like if you if you add KCN, you have got step up reaction with 1 carbon atom. Here you can have the same with 2 carbon atoms. So it is a good method, right? Okay, now we can use esters also. The only thing is that if you use like ethyl formate, then you will obtain aldehyde. If you use any other ester, right, so ethyl alkanoate, I'll say, then SN2, all this is via SN2 mechanism, and you are going to obtain ketone for the same, right? So I'll just give you a glimpse. You already know about it, how it can happen. So to H5 something is like this. So what can happen here is this R, this will come over here and this will attack here. So obviously MgX will get attached over here, right? So now again rearrangement will take place. So it will be, if you hydrolyze it, it will become OH, and then this will go in this next step. OC2H5 will go back, and you are going to have here OH plus bond. What I mean here is, after hydrolysis you are going to have something like this, C2H5 and C, and you already have got R over here, right? And there is H also, so there is a positive charge. So what is going to happen? This will go, right, and this will return back this, and this H will get attached to it. So this is how this will take place. This aldehyde will be formed. Similar fashion, in the similar fashion, your ketone will be also formed, right? So now if you react this with some alkyl halide, so MgX is going to extract X from here, and R and R dash will be combined. So this is an alternative of Wood's reaction. In case of Wood's reaction, it was difficult to form anything unsymmetrical. Otherwise, mixture of compounds will be formed, but here you can have R and R dash and this thing will be formed, right? So it can be unsymmetrical also. For example, if I take like CH3MgX and react this with say C2H5X, right? So via SN2 mechanism, right, CH3 and this will combine, and so you have got propane. So in case of woods it was very difficult, but with the help of Grignard reagent it can be planned accordingly. So unsymmetrical alkanes can be also obtained in this fashion, right? Okay, so now if you take chloramine or cyanogen chloride, again the same thing, this Cl will go with MgX, so MgX Cl will be obtained, right? And R will take NH2 for primary amine in this case and CN. So this is again a step up reaction. So this is your alkyl nitrile is formed with the help of this. So again a similar mechanism is followed. So you can see that your Grignard reagents are very versatile and very important both industrially and also for various lab researches, especially in cases of conversions from one compound to another compound. So it can achieve lot of steps quite easily because it can provide us carboanions quite easily, right? So we move into the last segment where we are going to talk about benzene diazonium chloride. Sorry. So you can see that this is a whole compilation of all the reactions that we discussed for Grignard reagent synthesis application. So it is a compilation of all. So once you have understood all the reactions individually, you can go through this particular screenshot and take the screenshot of this compilation, put it in your study table, so you will remember all the reactions with the help of previous discussion and this flowchart, right? Okay, now comes your benzene diazonium salt. How do we prepare that? We have already discussed it earlier also. We are again doing it here. So if you take benzene, do nitration and reduction of the same, you obtain aniline. Now when you react aniline with nitrous acid, now nitrous acid is formed only in situ, that is during the reaction, because nitrous acid is highly unstable. So you have got sodium nitrite and HCl. We react them to obtain nitrous acid, right? And we have to maintain the temperature of 0 to 5 degrees Celsius, otherwise the stability of benzene diazonium chloride is compromised, right? So this is how we obtain. Now if you think about a mechanism, how we did the last step, that is from aniline we went to benzene diazonium salt, let us try to understand with the help of its mechanism, right? It is quite interesting. Let's try to find it out. So what happens, you already have got, you see you have got HCl and it is already in aqueous conditions, so existence of hydronium ion is quite natural. So when hydronium ion interacts with your nitrous acid, so basically what is going to happen is it will protonate itself. So protonation of the nitrous acid is going to take place like this. Water molecules is removed. Now this protonated nitrous acid is going to interact with the conjugate base of nitrous acid. You can see that if you remove one hydrogen, you obtain this thing only. So this is the conjugate base of nitrous acid. So when they interact with each other, so what is going to happen? This H2O will be removed. It will take back its pair from here, and then N plus will be formed. So you obtain this. There's what? There's nothing but nitrogen trioxide, that is N2O3, right? So N2O3 is formed in the second step. This interacts with aniline now. So now your main product is coming into the play. So what is going to happen? It will interact with each other. So it will take back the electron pair and it will attack nitrogen from here. So you can see that you have got NH2, all this 2 is here, and NO is added to this nitrogen, and the conjugate base of your nitrous acid is removed from here. All these reactions are always under equilibrium, right? So now you can see that here this will again interact with the conjugate base. How it is going to happen? See here, so it will extract a proton and this is extracted. So we obtain this compound on the in the fourth step, right? Now what is going to happen? Since HCl is already there, so it will take up one proton. So protonation of this thing is going to take place. Cl minus is out of the system, right? So you have got this. Now again O has got a hydrogen over here. So what is going to happen? If water extracts this H, if water extracts this is what is going to happen is it will move here and this bond will move here when water is going to pick this hydrogen, right? So you obtain diazotic acid in the sixth step, right? Now diazotic acid is going to get protonated with HCl, right? It's a strong acid, so obviously it is going to take up this Cl minus form. So in the seventh step you obtain the protonated diazotic acid, in which this water molecule will leave and it will come over here, right? So this forms your diazonium cation along with Cl minus. So you have got the salt benzene diazonium chloride. So this is how in detail we have discussed how benzene diazonium chloride is formed. So again, like Grignard reagent, it's a very important compound industrially because it helps in formation of all the halobenzenes. So what are they? We have already spoken about these reactions earlier. We are just reinforcing it with the help of diazonium chloride salt. So what is happening here? With the help of aniline you obtained benzene diazonium chloride, right? And now when you interact you react benzene diazonium chloride with copper chloride or copper bromide, right? Of course in presence of their respective acids, so you obtain chlorobenzene and bromine. So this is your Sandmeyer reaction. Now in place of copper halides, if you go for the copper powder, right? So if you go for copper powder, then the same thing is obtained, but this is called now Gattermann reaction. It's a modified form of Sandmeyer reaction. So if you go for this Finkelstein type reaction, not done by him, so type reaction. So you have got, if you react this with potassium iodide, so iodobenzene is obtained. And in Boltzmann reaction, if you react with this, so basically first you are going to have from here you are going to have N2 plus Ba4 minus, right? This thing is formed, and from here on heating we obtain this. So this is called your Boltzmann reaction. So in detail we have covered various polyhalogen compounds. We have discussed preparation as well as various your applications of reactions of Grignard reagents. Same thing we did for benzene diazonium chloride. You usually do not get mechanism of benzene diazonium chloride formation, but it is quite good to know for the JEE mains or the JEE advanced or the NEET purpose. So we discussed the mechanism here and the various reactions that we can do with the help of benzene diazonium chloride is also in front of you. So all in all, this completes the whole chapter. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lesson. Whatever doubts you have got, whatever queries you may have, please feel free to write them in the comment section. We will be more than happy to share all the solve all those queries and doubts for you in the next class. So adios from concept free learning. See you in the next class with the next lesson. Happy learning. Enjoy. Thank you.